In the wake of violent attacks by migrants and Muslim radicals, the citizenry over in the UK, I would say, are trying to band together to, fix a broken justice system that targets truth and protects the guilty, all in the name of, social justice or woke radical ideology. And it's gotten so bad that you have people actually being arrested for their social media posts. So let me give just a brief breakdown of how we got here. And then, Matt, I'm going to go to you first because obviously this is where you hail from. So July 29th, there were 3 girls ages 6 through 9 who were killed during a brutal stabbing attack at a Taylor Swift-themed event for children in northern England. 8 other children and 2 adults were also injured, and police charged then 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana, whose parents are Rwandan immigrants, with the murders. He turned 18 days after his arrest. July 30th, the next day, there were rumors that the attacker was a Muslim extremist that started circulating online. There were thousands of people gathered to protest outside mosques. And then since then, over 20 UK towns have seen rioting by local citizens. Every mainstream media source practically has reported on rioters committing violence against Muslims. It's always the violence against Muslims. It's never the other way around that they want to report on. It just seems like, I don't know, if it were me and I were in the UK, I would want to hear about the violence that Muslims are actually committing against native Brits during these riots. Oh, like this one. So those of you who are listening, this is a gang of Muslims.
This is in my home city.
Is it?
Yeah, I know exactly where this is.
Is it a restaurant?
No, it's a pub.
A pub. I mean, they're just attacking.
And then they came out and apparently they apologized later.
Oh, that's nice.
No, after they kicked his face and they apologized.
Oh. Well, they're just kicking his face in.
Notice the flag, Sarah.
I do notice the flag, Matt. I do. And then we've got, let me give you one more. A video that, just shows a huge crowd of Muslim rioters. They're just brandishing weapons throughout the city, but it's okay. I'm sure that they're mostly peaceful weapons, okay? They're all mostly peaceful. It's totally fine. Don't be alarmed at the Muslim rioters. Don't be alarmed at the radical jihad extremists carrying weapons, beating the shit out of natives over in the UK. Don't be alarmed at any of that, okay? There's no reason to be concerned about that. In fact, you should just be concerned about spreading or inciting racial hatred, okay? Let me just play for you Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley, who, they're literally now, they're threatening to extradite and imprison American citizens over, social postings. Watch.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
So it's not the Muslim extremists. It's not the people who are beating the shit out of other citizens in the UK. It's actually the people who are online posting about it. You could post it and it could be totally true. You could just repost it, but your simple reposting of this is actually the cause for concern because you are amplifying something that then could be attributed to inciting racial hatred. And we wouldn't want that. Even if it were true, we wouldn't want that. And so you're going to be the one that's going to be thrown in jail and arrested. Even as an American, it sounded to me like that's what he said. Matt.
Yeah, I mean, this it angers me so much. I mean, this is the problem. What they're doing is they're cracking down on people and letting other people get away with things. And this is the absolute crux of the issue. You mentioned before about it was actually not accurate that the kid that did the stabbing was a Muslim. They got that wrong. And they're focusing on that. But that's not the issue. The issue was, for example, that they showed pictures of him as a 10-year-old. That's what the media put out. They didn't show the pictures of him as a 17-year-old. There's a big difference. We all have kids, right? We all have kids. And you have a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old. There's a very, very big difference. Yeah. So what it is, it's massive gaslighting, right? And this guy, instead of de-escalating, instead of saying, okay, listen, we've got to calm everything down, they're threatening people in England who, for years and years and years, listen, let me tell you something, because this drove me bonkers today on X. There was these stupid posts where people put up and they go, I just had a surgery and an immigrant did the surgery and an immigrant was the nurse and an immigrant was this, or like, I live in Islington and on one side of me there's someone from Turkey and on the, it's always been like that in London. This is not different. It was like that when I moved there in 1919, all those years ago. I know I look young, right? But all those years ago in 1990, and nobody had an issue with it. Nobody cared. So what has changed? And by the way, as we keep saying over here in America, there is a difference between legal and illegal. Again, you are gaslighting us, and it is not helpful to go and threaten people in another country that you are going to come down on them and try and tell them, where in America we have the First Amendment. Thank God, right? You don't get to do that. It's the gaslighting on this is unbelievable, and that the stabbings were just the tipping point. That's all it was. It was years and years and years and years and years of being told, you're a racist, you're this, you're that, if you don't like people coming in, and there's rape gangs, and there's all these other things. And the British people have been very, very tolerant. And now they're like, hang on a second, we are done. It's just the breaking point. So when Andrew Tate, by the way, went on and spoke with Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan kept hammering him on the fact that he did say that this was, he retweeted that this was an active Islamic terror. Andrew Tate is a Muslim, right? He's been very fair then. He's like, listen, we've got to stop this, because he understands the bigger picture of what's gone on for years and years and years, which is the constant demonizing of white people in England, the constant disenfranchising them, that there's nowhere for them to go. There's no upward mobility because of the DEI stuff we're talking about. So basically, if you are white, you are bad. If you want to say anything positive about England, then you are bad. Yet we got to say every other culture is awesome. Everyone can wave their flags, but if you wave a British flag, then no, you're a racist. That's what it's all about. It's all about this gaslighting, this two-tier system, that people are not being treated equally. Yet the ones that aren't treating them equally are the ones that keep going on about equality. Yeah. And people are just like, oh, I've had enough.
I want to talk about the more radical aspect of this, which, we're not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to talk about radical Muslims. We're not allowed to talk about the fact that they want to wipe out our existence. I know. We're not supposed to talk about that, but we're going to. But Eric, your thoughts on the fact that over in the UK, people are being arrested and being threatened to be imprisoned because of their social media posts, who may or may not incite racial hatred. And by the way, it's not just incite, it's or is likely to incite racial hatred in one of the clips I heard.
Yeah, I mean, it used to seem like it was a joke when you see people getting arrested for memes and stuff, but that seems to be what's happening in the Canadas of the world and the UKs, where it's a reality. And it's one thing for someone to go around actually slinging actual threats to folks. That's one thing that I don't think any just society is going to ever tolerate. But for simply having some general opinion on something, or funny memes or anything, to be imprisoned over that is absolutely insane. And what's happening in the UK is the same thing that is happening, albeit maybe it isn't happening to a smaller level or smaller degree. Maybe it's just because the US is so massive. Mm-hmm. It's far more widespread. But it's a cultural clash here that has to be significantly addressed before it ends up blowing up. And this is the point that I've been making, even to challenge anybody to go look at my work on this specific topic as a libertarian for the last decade. Now, I've always brought this up. It doesn't matter. I think people get so caught up into what they think free human beings should be able to do, which is why they always looked at the concept of borders. And some would say, well, it's just an imaginary line. Mm-hmm. And what I'd always challenge is that culture is a thing, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. It doesn't matter. Damn the law, right? Screw all that. Every point in human history where you've had these mass sort of forms of immigration without any sort of like assimilation, there's always been conflict, always. And sometimes it's not that there's like, hey, I hate you and you hate me. It's more or less they're just culturally incompatible. And if they are to exist, they probably within the same geographical area, it's going to naturally be more segregated. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. In fact, that's the only way to ensure that you're going to be living in a peaceful area, because what's happened now is that you have governments all over the world that are not only inviting this sort of behavior, but they're like paying for people. Definitely, like when you look at like various refugee programs, including the United States, where they're essentially paying people, asylum seekers or whatever you want to call them, to be over it with taxpayer dollars in some sort of capacity. So you're incentivizing this behavior, and they still adopt the culture that they did before, which is miles different from the culture that they're going to be living in. So just on bare, basic, foundational things, it's not necessarily that I hate you because you're a Muslim, or I hate you and they hate us because of Christian. Yes, there may be some of that stuff that exists, but that's not necessarily what this is. It's more your culture is miles different from my culture, and we are not compatible to be living amongst each other. Yep. And that's not a bad thing. This whole kumbaya approach to immigration that has happened over the last maybe 10, 20 years has been largely nonsensical. And the people that have often advocated it have, for one, they don't seem to be able to see directly what's beyond what's directly in front of them. I think that's the primary issue. It's like, oh, it's okay for now. And they're not thinking like, well, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, how exactly does it look? This is how it looks, where there's going to be continuous conflict. It's going to continue on. And it doesn't matter just because you think that everybody should be everybody's embracing everybody's culture and coexist. Diversity and all these.
Is our strength.
No, it's not. This is something that needs to get addressed all around the world. Get your heads out your asses and stop looking at immigration like it's just this beautiful thing. Unless there's some sort of form of assimilation in any capacity, this is what you're going to get. Constant conflict.
There's a huge majority of Muslims that just want a peaceful life. They want to get on with their lives. And this is just feeding into the hate. And I've got to say, either it's massive incompetence or there's, I hate to say it because after COVID, like any conspiracy theory or conspiracies on the table, why are they doing this?